Hunter S. Thompson, Death to the Weird. The mayor appeared to be drunk when the others got off the plane in Denver. Nobody paid much attention as he vomited once again and fell over against the greasy plastic window. That is from my notes on the night of Monday, October 7th, which was almost as bad as nights get. It was one of the worst and most humiliating episodes in the history of commercial aviation. A nightmare of failure and treachery that began as a routine 40-minute night flight from Denver to Aspen on a jam-packed plane carrying 44 unwary passengers across the Continental Divide in weather that was rumored to be menacing. A freakish early snowstorm was coming in from Montana, they said. But whoever was watching the weather for the airline that night had apparently sized up the menace and found it to be acceptable. We left at 6:51 p.m., just as the Monday Night Football game between Washington and St. Louis was about to get underway. I had bet heavily on the game, taking the Redskins with 2 points at home against the Cardinals, who were 3-1 at the time and looking uppity. The Redskins were 1-3 and playing like winos. There were rumors of dissension in Washington. Quarterback Joe Theismann was said to be in the vicious grip of Kathy Lee Crosby, and all-pro running back John Riggins was allegedly suffering from the same drinking problem that caused him to sleep on the floor during a black-tie George Bush speech last January in Washington. It was a sporting proposition, and I was not the only one on the plane who was eager to get home and watch the game on TV. The flight was due in at 7:30, which meant I could sprint off the plane to the ancient red Jeep I had left in the airport parking lot a few days earlier and catch the last 3 quarters in the squalid comfort of the Down Valley Tavern where I normally watch these things. Howard Cosell is gone now, but so what? I am a gambler, and if the games were called by Judge Carter, it would make no difference to me, as long as I have a clear view of the action and know the score at all times. Never mind the announcers. Somebody has to do it, and the best we can hope for is one who won't get in the way. That was Howard. He has no more business in the ABC press box for Monday Night Football than I do. When you take the game seriously, you want information, not gibberish. And the smooth, gay call of a professional football creature like Frank Gifford. John Madden can make a dual game vaguely interesting. In the same way he can no doubt spice up a long trip on Amtrak as he rides the rails from town to town like some kind of wandering Jew with a gold-plated potbelly and a stolen Xerox copy of his old Raiders playbook. But Madden is not objective like me. In his heart, he is still in Oakland, lurking around the old practice field in the marshes of Almeida, with the ghosts of other bedrock outlaws like Freddie Bilentnikoff and Ted Hendricks, and even a past wide receiver who was arrested almost constantly during every season for extremely savage crimes. Rape, the least of them, as I recall. And it was not a one-time thing. The wide receiver had a real taste for crime, and he indulged it with an erratic kind of vigor that made him an albatross for Madden and a natural soulmate for my old friend, Al Davis, who remains the ultimate Raider. They were serious people, and John Madden was definitely one of them, for good or ill. Living with the Oakland Raiders in those days was not much different than living with the Hells Angels. I was brooding on these things when the pilot came on the squawk box and said we were turning back to Denver because of either ice on the runway or failure of the plane's de-icing equipment, or maybe fog in the valley. The real reason was never made clear. The mayor, meanwhile, had denounced me in public for daring to smoke a Dunhill on the plane, and the pig-eyed stewardess was threatening to have me met, as they say, by an armed FAA inspector when the plane touched down in Aspen, or Montrose, or maybe even Parker, Arizona. Madden was right about airplanes. We are all hostages when the wheels are up. And I was trying to explain this to the mayor, who was threatening me with jail if I smoked another cigarette. It was against the law, he said, but I knew he was lying. By this time, we had botched our second aborted landing at the Aspen airport, and we had been wallowing around the sky for 2 hours. The long tin cabin smelled of fear and confusion and vomit. The stewardess had taken the names of at least 6 people who had tried to get back to the lavatory in the rear, but were harshly turned away because the seatbelt sign was on. The woman defended her turf like a wolverine. No smoking, no drinking, no moving about the cabin. Then the pilot announced on the intercom that We were preparing for yet another half-blind run at the Aspen airport. We had missed the first time, he explained, because he couldn't see the runway. And on the second pass, he saw the lights, but he was going too fast to land. And now, as we rolled around crazily in the black October sky, he was jabbering nervously about trying again, if we had enough gas. No, no, the mayor screamed. We'll never make it. Which was true. It was sometime around midnight when he got back to Denver, where we'd started 4 or 5 hours ago. The night had been a monumental failure. We had taken the worst flight in the world and gone nowhere. The Redskins game was over and we didn't even know who won. As I passed up the aisle, getting off the plane, I noticed that the mayor had fallen out of his classic brace position and his neck was oddly bent. Later, when goons dragged him into the terminal where angry passengers jeered him as he collapsed on a plastic bench, I put my cigarette out on his neck and took $100 out of his wallet, the price of 2 fares, and told him he was lucky to get off so easily. This will teach you to lean on serious people, I said. You body Nazis have had your way long enough. October 4th, 1985.